to everybody. Alright, here we go. Goranga. Notice went out. Check to see if we're live. We are live. Fantastic. I think it's working. Yep. Okay, let's start the session. Okay, first we're going to chant. And here we go. We're going to chant Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Guru More Toma Bina Kedaya Lau Jagat Samsari Atita Papana Hetu Tavavatara Moshamo Atita Prabhu Napai Meha Haka Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Suki Kripa Balaganakara Ami Baroduki Daya Koro Sitapati Advaita Gosai Tava Kripavo Lepahe Chaitanya Nityakai Aha Swarup Sanatana Rupa Raghunath Bhatta Jugatshi Jiva Aha Prabhu Loknath Daya Koro Shri Jaya Prabhu Srinivas Ramachandra Sangamage Narottamdas Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Guru More Toma Bina Kedaya Lau Jagat Samsari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Doya Guru More Toma Bina Kedaya Lau Jagat Samsari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravatikacharya, also Teta Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Savaya Charanana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananda Gauti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadwaita Gadadha Shivasri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Saim Kund Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Mathuram Ki Jai, Jagadada Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Budale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nivashesha Shunyavadi Paschatcha Dejatarani. So, we're going to continue with our study of the Sri Caitanya Caritamrta. We are on the 13th chapter of the Antya Lila of the Caitanya Caritamrta. So, Om Gana Timidanda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. Actually, first I should read the translation to this Vaishnava poem. My dear Lord, please be merciful to me, because who can be more merciful than your Lordship within these three worlds? Your incarnation is just to reclaim the conditioned fallen souls, but I assure you that you will not find a more fallen soul than me. Therefore my claim is first. My dear Lord Nityananda, you are always joyful in spiritual bliss. Since you always appear very happy, I have come to you because I am most unhappy. If you kindly put your glance over me, I may also become happy. My dear Advaita Prabhu, husband of Sita, you are so kind. Please be kind to me. If you're kind to me, naturally, Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda will also be kind to me. I pray for the mercy of Swarup Damodar, the 6 Goswamis, namely Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatan Goswami, Shri Bhatta Raghunath Goswami, Shri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Shri Jiva Goswami, and Shri Raghunath Das Goswami, and Lokanath Prabhu. I, Narottam Das, pray to the merciful Srinivasacharya, and I always desire the company of Ramchandra. Of course, his Ramchandra was Ramchandra Kaviraj, who was the disciple of Srinivas Acharya, and who was his intimate friend. In fact, there's an interesting story about this Ramchandra Kaviraj. One time he was with Narottam Das Thakur, and this Ramchandra Kaviraj was married too, so Narottam Das Thakur told him, go to see your wife. And so it was Ramchandra Kaviraj, trying to obey the order of Narottam Das Thakur, walked a few paces away, but he couldn't bear the separation of Narottam Das Thakur. That's how close these Vaishnavas were with each other. And so basically what happened is that Narottam looked up and he saw that Ramchandra Kaviraj had not listened to his instruction. And Ramchandra Kaviraj felt so guilty that he had not listened to Narottam Das Thakur's instruction that he started to hit himself with a stick. And Narottam Das Thakur ran up to him and said, "You're beating me." In other words, there was so much love that Narottam Das Thakur couldn't stand to see Ramchandra Kaviraj in pain. And there's another famous poem by Narottam Das Thakur, which is, of course, the prayers of the departed Vaishnavas, Saparshada Gora Viraha Vilapa. And in this poem, Narottam Das Thakur laments concerning the separation of great Vaishnavas. And this poem was written after he learned about the departure of two great Vaishnavas, Srinivasacharya and also Ramchandra Kaviraj. So you see this like really, really close relationships between Vaishnavas, between pure Vaishnavas. A very important principle in spiritual life. Because if we have close relationship with Vaishnavas, then we get the Bhakti Lata Beach. Because Bhakti comes from the heart of pure Vaishnavas. Krishna personally doesn't give Bhakti, but Bhakti comes from the heart of pure Vaishnavas. Okay, remember that. So let's go to the Caitanya Caritamrta. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So chapter 13, more pastimes with Jagannatha Pandit and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Now remember, Jagannatha Pandit is an incarnation of Satyabhama, and he serves the Lord by getting angry with him. And in the last chapter, we heard how Jagannatha Pandit brought sandalwood oil for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't want to take the sandalwood oil because he considered that it wasn't proper or appropriate for a sannyasi to put sandalwood oil on his body. And then Jagannatha Pandit got so angry he smashed a whole container of sandalwood oil, which was probably worth thousands of dollars or whatever. And he went into seclusion without eating or whatever for 3 days. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to sort of like get him out of seclusion by asking him to prepare prasadam for him. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to eat too much prasadam just to avoid getting Jagannatha Pandit angry. So a very interesting story in the last chapter of the Caitanya Caritamrta. Let's go on to this chapter. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives the following summary of the 13th chapter in his Amrita Prabha Bhashya. Thinking Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was uncomfortable sleeping on a bark of plantain leaves, Jagadananda made a pillow and quilt for him. The Lord, however, did not accept them. Then Swarup Damodar Goswami made another pillow and quilt from finely shredded plantain leaves, and after strongly objecting, the Lord accepted them. With the permission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagadananda Pandit went to Vrindavan, where he discussed many devotional subjects with Sanatana Goswami. There was also a discussion about Mukunda Saraswati's garment. When Jagadananda returned to Jagannath Puri, he presented Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with some gifts from Sanatana Goswami, and the incident of the pilu fruit took place. Once, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became ecstatic upon hearing the songs of a Devadasi. Those are the ladies who chanted and danced for Lord Jagannath. Unaware of who was singing, in other words, he wasn't aware that it was a lady, he ran toward her through the thorny bushes, but when Govinda informed the Lord that it was a woman singing, he immediately stopped. By this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed everyone that sannyasis and Vaishnavas should not hear women singing. Now, of course, that was a particular time. Obviously, things have changed. But one has to be careful when they're seeing the opposite sex, even women hearing men singing, or men seeing, or women seeing men dancing, or men seeing women dancing. One has to be careful that one's mind is pure, because the attraction excuse me, between men and women is very, very strong in this world. In fact, I think it's the strongest attraction. And so one has to be careful not to be bewildered by the form or the voice of the gender which one is attracted to. It's actually can be quite dangerous. So very, very careful. That's the point, to exercise care. When Raghunath Bhatta Goswami left Varanasi on his way to Jagannath Puri after completing his education, he met Ram Das Vishwasa Pandit. Vishwasa Pandit was very proud of his education, and being an impersonalist, he was not well received by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A summary of the life of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami ends this chapter. So quite a bit of information in this chapter. I am all excited about it. Krishna Vicheda Jatarcha Kshine Chapi Manastanu Dathate Pula Tang Babar Yashatam Goramashraye. Let me take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Gaurachandra. His mind became exhausted and his body very thin from the pain of separation from Krishna, but when he felt ecstatic love for the Lord, he again became fully developed. In other words, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body, well, he is his body, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, manifested himself in different ways according to his mood. In other words, he looked differently, he acted differently according to the mood that he was experiencing. And sometimes the body would become very thin, then it would be normal. Sometimes the hands would extend for many cubits, then they come back. Sometimes the hands and arms would actually enter into the body and then come back to normalcy. Something that an ordinary human being could not do, could not experience. As we mentioned many times before, even pure love of God, I mean all the bhavas, especially the Sanchari bhavas, the Vabhachari bhavas, cannot be experienced while one has a material body, or else that's it for your body. I mean, you will die. But if you have a spiritual body, or you are your spiritual body, it's interesting that how we describe this. Having a spiritual, and yeah, I guess having a spiritual body, you are the spiritual body, you're non-different from the spiritual body, there's no duality, then that's different. Then you can express these emotions to the fullest. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra, Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Nityananda Prabhu, all glories to Dvaita Acharya, and all glories to all the devotees of the Lord. Hey Namate Mahaprabhu, Jagadananda Sange, Nanamate Ashvadaya, Primera Tarange. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would taste various transcendental relationships of pure love in the company of Jagadananda Pandit. Jagadananda Pandit's Prema Vivarta, the illusion of prema. In other words, in prema there's so many, let's say, so many angles of vision, even anger. Krishna Vichede Duke Kshina Manakaya Bhavaveshe Prabhu Kavu Prapulita Haya. The unhappiness of separation from Krishna exhausted the Lord's mind and reduced the structure of his body, but when he felt emotions of ecstatic love, he again became developed and healthy. Wow. Kalaras Sharalate Shainati Kshina Kaya Sharalate Hadalage Yatahaya Gaya. Because he was very thin when he lay down to rest on the dry bark of plantain trees, it caused him pain in his bones. Dried bark of plantain trees. Deki Sabha Bhaktagana Mahaduka Paya Sahitena Re Jagadananda Sri Shila Upaya. All the devotees felt very unhappy to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in pain. Indeed, they could not tolerate it. Then Jagadananda Pandit devised a remedy. Shukshma Vastrahani Godika Dia Rangaila Shimulira Tula Dia Tahapuraila. He acquired some fine cloth and colored it with red oxide. Then he filled it with cotton from a shimula tree. It's like a cushion. Very nice cotton cushion. Ekatuli Balisa Govindera Hate Dila Prabhure Shuaila Kaiha Ihaya Tahare Kahila. In this way he made a quilt and a pillow, which he then gave to Govinda, saying, "Ask the Lord to lie on this." Sarupa Goswami Ke Kaye Jagadananda Ajiyapanayana Prabhure Kadaiha Shayana. Jagadananda said to Swarup Damodar Goswami, "Today, please personally persuade Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to lie down on the bed." Shayanera Kale Swarupa Tahani Rahila Tule Balisa Deki Prabhu Krodavishta Haila. When it was time for the Lord to go to bed, Swarup Damodar stayed nearby, but when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the quilt and pillow, he was immediately very angry. Govindere Puchina Iha Karaila Konjana Jagadanandera Nama Shuni Sankocha Halamana. The Lord inquired from Govinda, "Who has made this?" When Govinda named Jagadananda Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was somewhat fearful because he was afraid of getting Jagadananda Pandit angry again. He's thinking, "Oh no, we just went through this whole occasion where Jagadananda Pandit fasted and didn't get out of his room for 3 days. God knows what he's going to do now." This is like... Whew. So remember, Jagadananda is Satyabhama, and he has this anger, this bond, which pleases Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is enjoying this. He's enjoying this fear. It's one of the indirect rasas. So just like we have fear in this world, and the fear is an anartha, right? Vaya. Kama Kroda Bhari Vaya. Like this. Kama Kroda Madhamatsarya Bhari Vaya. So, Vaya is caused by lack of knowledge. What is that lack of knowledge? Abhaya Sattva Samshuri Gyani Yoga If one understands the nature of this world, then one can conquer fear, mundane fear. But then there's spiritual fear that's actually experienced by the devotees and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada actually said, the problem is that we're not enough, us Western boys and girls, we're not enough afraid of Maya. So we should be afraid of Maya. And so here, this is a loving exchange, not simply that's Maya involved in this particular exchange between Jagadananda and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. But Lord Chaitanya doesn't want to aggravate Jagadananda, because he loves him. If he didn't love him, he wouldn't care. All right. Oops. After asking Govinda to put aside the quilt and pillow, the Lord lay down on the dry plantain bark. Sarupa kahi tumara icha ki kahite bhari shaya upakshile pandita duka pabe bari. Swarup Damodar said to the Lord, I cannot contradict your supreme will, my Lord, but if you do not accept the bedding, Jagadananda Pandit will feel great unhappiness. So here's another threat by the anger of Jagadananda again. Prabhu Kahena Kataeka Anaha Pandita Padita Dite Jagadananda Chahi Amaya Vishaya Punjaite. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, you might as well bring a bedstead here for me to lie on. Jagadananda wants me to enjoy material happiness. It really wasn't Jagadananda's desire that Lord Chaitanya would enjoy material happiness. It was Jagadananda's desire that Lord Chaitanya would be comfortable at least. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very concerned about setting the ideal example for a sannyasi in those days. So also, we should not be accepting any more than is necessary for keeping the body and soul together. So, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharta Eka Puracha Purana Shri Krishna Chaitanya Sharira Dari Kripam Purir Yastram Aham Prabhadye. Lord Chaitanya came to teach Vairagya and also give Vidya or knowledge. Sannyasi Manusha Amara Bhumite Shayana Amare Kata Tuli Balisa Nastaka Mundana. I am in the renounced order, and therefore I must lie on the floor. For me to use a bedstead, quilt, or pillow would be very shameful. Swarup Goshanyasi Pandite Kahila Shuni Jagadananda Mane Mahaduka Paila. When Swarup Damodar returned and related all these incidents, Jagadananda Pandit felt very unhappy, obviously. Swarupa Goshani Tabe Shri Chila Prakara Karadira Shushka Patra Anila Apara. Then Swarup Damodar Goswami devised another method. First, he secured a large quantity of dry banana leaves. Naki chiri chiri taha ati shukshma kaila prabhura vahirvasa duite se sababarila. He then tore the leaves into very fine fibers with his nails and filled two of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's outer garments with the fibers. E mata dvi kaila odana padane angikara kaila prabhu aneka yatane. In this way, Swarup Damodar made some bedding and a pillow, and after much endeavor by the devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted them. Tate Shayana Karena Prabhu Deki Sabe Sukhi Jagadananda Vitare Kroda Pahire Mahaduki. Everyone was happy to see the Lord lie down on that bed, but Jagadananda was inwardly angry, and externally he appeared very unhappy, because the Lord did not accept my service. Purve Jagadananda Raicha Vrindavana Yaite Prabhu Dena Tanre Napare Chalite. Formerly, when Jagadananda Pandit had desired to go to Vrindavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not given his permission, and therefore he could not go. So now he's going to want to go because he's just like fried to max. Anyway, Vita Reara Kroda Dukkha prakasha nat kaila mathurayati prabhustane ajnama gila. Now, concealing his anger and happiness, Jagadananda Pandit again asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for permission to go to Mathura. Prabhu kai Mathura yaiba amaya kroda kadi amaya dosha lagana tume aiba bikari. With great affection, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, if you are angry with me when you go to Mathura, you will merely become a beggar and criticize me. That wasn't Jagadananda's intention. His intention was just like, it was just too stressful for him there. Jagadananda kahi prabhura dadiya charana purvahaite chamora yaite brindavana. Grasping the Lord's feet, Jagadananda Pandit then said, for a long time I have desired to go to Vrindavan. Prabhu nahi tate na pariyaite eva yagya deha avasya yaimu nishchite. I could not go without your lordship's permission. Now you must give me permission, and I shall certainly go there. Prabhu prite tanra gamana nakarena angikara teno prabhuda tani agna magivara para. Because of affection for Jagadananda Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not permit him to depart, but Jagadananda repeatedly insisted that the Lord gave him permission to go. He finally gets permission. Sarup Goswami Re Pandita Kaila Nivedana Purvahaite Vrindavana Yaite Moramana. Jagadananda then submitted a plea to Sarup Damodar Goswami. For a very long time he said, I wanted to go to Vrindavan. Prabhu Agna Vinathan Yaiti Na Pari Evi Agna Nadena More Krode Yaha Bale. I cannot go there, however, without the Lord's permission, which at present he denies me. He says you are going because you are angry at me. Which is true. Sahaje Mora Tahan Yaiti Manakaya Prabhu Agna Lana Deha Karya Vinaya. Naturally, I have a desire to go to Vrindavan. Therefore, please humbly request him to grant his permission. Kabe Swarupa Goswami Kai Prabhura Charane Jagadandera Yachabada Yaiti Vrindavane. Thereafter, Swarup Damodar Goswami submitted this appeal at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jagadananda Pandit intensely desires to go to Vrindavan. Tumara Tani Agda Deno Mage Bara Bara Agda Deha Mathura Deki Aise Eka Bara. He begs for your permission again and again, therefore please permit him to go to Mathura and then return. Aire Dikite Aichi Goda Desha Yaya Taiche Ekabara Vrindavana Deki Aya. You permitted him to go see Mother Sachi in Bengal, and you may similarly permit him to go to Vrindavan and then return there. Return here, sorry. Sarupa Goswami Rabole Prabhu Agna Dila Jaganande Volana Tanre Shikaela. At the request of Sarup Damodar Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu granted Jagadananda Pandit permission to go. The Lord sent for him and instructed him as follows. Now these instructions are very important. Varanasi Paryanta Swachande Yaiva Pate Age Savadhane Yaiva Kshatriyari Sate. You may go as far as Varanasi without encountering disturbances, but beyond Varanasi, you should be very careful to travel on the path in the company of the Kshatriyas. And Prabhupada explains, in those days the path from Varanasi to Vrindavana was infested with robbers, and therefore there were Kshatriyas to protect travelers. That's really important. Kevala Gaudiya Paile, Bhattapada Kari Bande, Savaluti Bandi Rake, Yaite Virode. As soon as the plunderers on the road see a Bengali traveling alone, they take everything from him, arrest him, and do not let him go. So Prabhupada says, Bengalis are generally not very stout and strong. Therefore, when a lone Bengali traverses the roads of Bihar, the plunderers on the road, Bihar is many different criminals in Bihar. Actually, even today or recently, they would stop the trains going through Bihar and rob everybody on the trains. So, and there was a lot of guns. Of course, in those days there were no guns, but there's a lot of guns and rifles in Bihar. The plunderers on the road capture him, rob all his belongings, and kidnap him for their own service, turn him into a slave. According to one opinion, the rogues of Bihar know very well the Bengalis are intelligent. Therefore, these thieves generally force the Bengalis into service, required intelligence, and do not allow them to leave. Ooh. Dangerous. Mathura gele sanatana sange rahiba mathura swami sabera chalana vandiba. When you reach Mathura, you should remain with Sanatana Goswami and offer respectful obeisances to the feet of all the leading men there. Duri rahi bhakti kariya sange na rakiva tansabara chara cheshta lahite nariva. Do not mix freely with the residents of Mathura. Show them respect from a distance, because you are on a different platform of devotional service. You cannot adopt their behavior and practices. This is really important instruction, because the residents of Vrindavan, as Prabhupada is going to explain this in the purport, the residents of Vrindavan and Mathura are devotees of Krishna in parental affection, and their feelings always conflict with the opinions of smarta brahmanas. Devotees who worship Krishna in opulence cannot understand the parental devotional feelings of the residents of Mathura and Vrindavan, who follow the path of spontaneous love. So, of course, Jagannatha Pandit is Satyabhama, and Satyabhama doesn't have, that same mood of intimacy as the residents of Vrindavan. So he would be inclined to criticize them for their spontaneous love. I mean, if you go to Raj today and you talk to the residents of Vrindavan, they actually consider Krishna just like one of their family members. Just like the story of Madan Gopal, the deity Madan Gopal later became Madan Mohan, worshipped by Sanatana Goswami. Madan Gopal was being taken care of by a family in Mathura, and the way they were taking care of him is they would just treat him like their son. They didn't put him on the altar. They would put him at the dinner table to take food. Their son would actually play with him. And Sanatana Goswami, when he saw that, he got very upset. And Madan Gopal came to him in a dream and said, "You are spoiling my fun. And so therefore you have to take care of me." So, anyway, so deity worship should be regulated. Devotees on the platform of Vidhi Marg, regulated devotional principles, may misunderstand the activities of those on the platform of Raga Marg, devotional service and spontaneous love. Therefore, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Jagannatha Pandit to remain apart from the residents of Vrindavan, who were spontaneous devotees, so as not to become disrespectful towards them. One has to be very careful. That's one of the offenses when you go to the Holy Dham, is to offend the residents of the Holy Dham, considering them ordinary people. Sanatana Sange Karihavana Tarashana Sanatanera Sangana Chadiba Ekakshana. Visit all 12 forests of Vrindavan in the company of Sanatana Goswami. Do not leave his association for even a moment. So it really was protective of Jagannatha Pandit. Shigura Sitana Rahia Chirakala Govardhane Nachariha Dekite Gopala. You should remain in Vrindavan for only a short time and then return here as soon as possible. Also, do not climb Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity. Gopal, of course, was the deity that later became known as Nachi and went to Natwar, Sri Nachi in Natwar. And Gopal at that particular point, because he was installed on top of Govardhan Hill by Madhavan Puri, was residing on top of Govardhan Hill. So the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu naturally do not climb Govardhan Hill to see the deity, and the deity's not there anymore anyway. So sometimes the deity was brought down from Govardhan Hill because there were impending attacks by the Muslims, who they were afraid were going to smash the deities. At that time, different devotees got a chance to see the deity. That happened one time with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, happened with Sanatana Rupa Goswami too. But generally, not generally, but devotees should not climb touch their feet to Govardhan Hill. Govardhan Hill is non-different from Krishna. It's like touching your feet to Krishna. In his Amrita Prabha Vasha, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises that one should avoid remaining in Vrindavan for a very long time. As the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. If one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. Therefore, those who have not attained to the stage of spontaneous love for Krishna should not live in Vrindavan very long. It is better for them to make short visits. One should also avoid climbing Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity. Since Govardhan Hill itself is identical with Gopal, one should not step on the hill or touch it with his feet. One may see Gopal when he goes elsewhere. Also, the Tirumala Hills are considered to be a manifestation of Lord Vishnu, the spine actually of Lord Vishnu. So the devotees, somehow or other, they do have to walk up, but you have great devotees like Sripad Ramanujacharya, who actually walked up on his knees rather than on his feet, using his feet. So, but we have to be practical. And today I have seen when I've been in Tirumala and Tirupati, I've seen devotees walking up with their feet tied to the back of their thighs, and so they walk up on their knees. It is a long walk. And actually, when Ramanujacharya walked all the way up to see Balaji in the top of Tirumala, he did not eat on the top, did not do any bodily things like evacuation or whatever on the top, because he considered the hill, and the hill is actually an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, of Sheshanag actually. Amiha Shaitechi Kahiha Sanatane Maratare Ekastana Yena Kare Vrindavane. Inform Sanatan Goswami that I am coming to Vrindavan for a second time, that he should therefore arrange a place for me to stay. Etabali Jagadanande Kaila Lingana Jagadananda Chalila Prabhura Pandya Charana. After saying this, the Lord embraced Jagadananda Pandit, who then worshipped the Lord's lotus feet and started for Vrindavan. Sabhavakta Ganatani Agna Magila Vanapati Chali Chali Varanasi Aila. He took permission from all the devotees and then departed. Traveling on the forest path, he soon reached Varanasi. Tapana Mishra Chandrashikara Donhare Midila Tanratani Prabhura Kata Sakala I Shunila. When he met Tapana Mishra and Chandrasekhar in Varanasi, they heard from him about topics concerning Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Mathurate asi milila sanatane Twijanera sangi dunhe anandita mane. Finally, Jagadananda Pandit reached Mathura, where he met Sanatana Goswami. They were very pleased to see each other. Sanatana Karaila Tanre Dwadasha Vanadara Shana Gokule Rahile Dunhe Deki Mahavana. After Sanatana Goswami had taken Jagadananda to see all 12 forests of Vrindavan, concluding with Mahavana, the two of them remained in Gokula. Wow. Sanatanera Gopate Dunhe Rahi Ekatani Panditapaka Karina Devalaye Yai. They stayed in Sanatana Goswami's cave, but Jagadananda would go to a nearby temple and cook for himself, because Jagadananda was not a sannyasi. Sanatana Bhiksha Karena Yai Mahavane Kavu Devalaye Kavu Ramana Sadhane. Sanatana Goswami would beg alms from door to door in the vicinity of Mahavana. Sometimes he would go to a temple and sometimes to a Brahmin's house. Sanatana Panditera Kare Sabadana Mahavane Dena Ani Magi Anapana. Sanatana Goswami attended to all of Jagadananda Pandit's needs. He begged in the area of Mahavan and brought Jagadananda all kinds of things to eat and drink. Great host. Ekadina Sanatane Pandita Nimantrila Nitya Kritya Karitena Pakachadaila. One day, Jagannatha Pandit, having invited Sanatana to the nearby temple for lunch, finished his routine duties and began to cook. Mukunda Saraswati Nama Sannyasi Mahajane Ekabahira Sateno Dila Saratane. Previously, a great sannyasi named Mukunda Saraswati had given Sanatana Goswami an outer garment. Sanatana Sevastra Mastake Vandya Jagannandera Vasadware Vasila Asya. Sanatana Goswami was wearing this cloth bound about his head when he came to Jagannatha Pandit's door and sat down. Ratulavastrateki Pandita Prema Vishtahaila Mahaprabhura Prasada Jani Tanhare Puchila. Assuming the reddish cloth to be a gift from Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagannatha Pandit was overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Thus he questioned Sanatana Goswami. Kahan Pailatumi E Ratula Vasana Mukunda Saraswati Dila Kai Sanatana. Ooh, now Sanatana Goswami's getting in trouble. Where did you get that reddish cloth on your head? Jagannatha asked. Sanatana Goswami replied, Mukunda Saraswati gave it to me. Shuni Panditera Mane Krodopajila Paterahandi Hatelana Maritea Ila. Hearing this, Jagannatha immediately became very angry and took a cooking pot in his hand, intending to beat Sanatana Goswami. Woo-hoo! What anger! What man! Sanatana Caitanya Jane Lajita Haila Palite Lagila Panditahandi Chulate Darila. Sanatana Goswami, however, knew Jagannatha Pandit very well and was consequently somewhat ashamed. Jagannatha therefore left the cooking pot on the stove and spoke as follows. Tumi Mahaprabhura Hao Par Shada Pradana Tomasama Mahaprabhura Priya Nahi Ana. You are one of the chief associates of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, no one is dearer to him than you. Anya Sanyasira Vastratumi Dara Shire Konachehaya Iha Pare Sahibare. Still, you have bound your head with the cloth given to you by another sannyasi. Who could tolerate such behavior? Wow. Sanatana Kahi Sarupandita Mahashaya Tomasama Chaitanyera Priya Keha Naya. Sanatana Goswami said, My dear Jagannatha Pandit, you are a greatly learned saint. No one is dearer to Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu than you. Ache Chaitanya Nishta Yogya Tomate Tumina De Kaila Iha Shikiba Kemate. This faith in Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu quite befits you. Unless you demonstrate it, how could I learn such faith? Yaha Dekibare Vastra Mastake Vandila Seapurva Prema E Pratyaksha Dekila. My purpose in binding my head with the cloth has now been fulfilled because I have personally seen your uncommon love for Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. In other words, he said he did it deliberately. Raktavastra Vaishnavera Paritena Yuyaya Kona Pravashire Dimu Kaya Udaya. This saffron cloth is unfit for a Vaishnava to wear, therefore I have no use for it. I shall give it to a stranger. Srila Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments on this incident as follows. Vaishnavas are all liberated persons unattached to anything material. Therefore, a Vaishnava need not accept the dress of a sannyasi to prove his exalted position. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the renounced order from a sannyasi of the Mayavadi school. Present-day Vaishnava sannyasis, however, never think that by accepting the dress of a sannyasa order, they become equal to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. In fact, a Vaishnava accepts the sannyasa order to remain an eternal servant of his spiritual master. He accepts the sannyasa order knowing that he is unequal to his spiritual master, who is a Paramahamsa, and he thinks that he is unfit to dress like a Paramahamsa. Therefore, a Vaishnava accepts sannyas out of humility, not out of pride. Sanatana Goswami had adopted the dress of a Paramahamsa, therefore it was inappropriate for him to wear the saffron cloth on his head. However, a Vaishnava sannyasi does not think himself fit to imitate the dress of a Paramahamsa Vaishnava. According to the principles set down by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Trinadapi su nichena. Uh, One should always think of himself the lowest stage, not on the level of Paramahansa Vaishnava. Thus, a Vaishnava will sometimes accept a sannyasa order just to keep himself below the level of a Paramahansa Vaishnava. This is the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In other words, the saffron would indicate a lower grade of sannyas, whereas the Paramahansa order, which the Goswamis of Vrindavan were on, meant that someone would dress in white, not in saffron, with just like a lungi or a gumshaw, white gumshaw, and a little wrapper on the top. And certainly they wouldn't use saffron. Saffron would be, even today, it's actually for Parvajakacharya sannyasis. So, let's see, we went from first text to 61st text. Let's mark that. First in chapter 13. And now we will allow you to ask questions. I am going to, hold on a second, allow you to unmute. Give me 1 second. Okay. You are officially allowed to unmute. You could raise your hand, type in the text window, or unmute yourself if you're bold enough to ask a question. Who has a question? Wow. No one has a question.
Gurudev, please accept my humble obeisances.
Okay, Rakesh. So what's the question?
One of my friend at the temple inquired, the person has a tulsi plant at home, but he always comes to the temple to get some tulsi when he offers food to the Sri Radha Gopinath at home. He never plucks from his own plant at home. So he said he's not supposed to take from his own plant at home. So I was just wondering, is there some kind of sastric information?
No, you can take from your own plant at home, but maybe the plant at home is too small.
He's got a big plant.
He's got a big plant. Well, anyway, that's his ritual. I don't know anything about that ritual. But basically, yes, one can take Tulsi leaves from one's plant at home, and one can take Tulsi leaves from the plant in the temple to offer to Radha Gopinath. So, anyway, everyone has different opinions about different rituals, and I'm not going to criticize people for having different rituals and different opinions. The main thing is he's offering Tulsi leaves. That's the main thing.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Okay. So Jagat says, here's a question. Before he left, Jagannatha Prabhu worshipped Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet. What does that entail? That's actually interesting. Well, at least touching Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet, maybe doing a little arti or something like that. I mean, it's really not described, but basically at least bowing down, touching his feet, or putting your head on his feet. At least that, if not something more elaborate. Okay, good question. So who else has a question? I think Sumuk had a question. Yeah.
Yes, Gurudev. I was thinking when I had this class today about Jagannath Pandit, and I know Jagannath Pandit is Satyabhama in Krishna Lila. So they come and take part in the Chaitanya Lila. My question is when we here in Fiji, when I look at meet a devotee, I meet Jagannath Prabhu, I meet Parshuram Prabhu, I meet Narsingha Prabhu, I meet Indilika Mataji, Vaikuntha Mataji. So when I meet them, when I say their name, what should I meditate on?
You should meditate on that they are servants of Krishna, servants of Prabhupada and their spiritual master, Guru Tamal Krishna. Some of them are disciples of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. You should meditate on them as being great personalities. I mean, I'm not saying that one of them is Lolita or Vishaka or anything like that, but they're servants. And actually, one should not find fault in Vaishnavas, even if there's some spots on the moon. You don't find fault on the moon or in the moon. So the Vaishnavas too, you don't find fault in the Vaishnavas. You appreciate their devotional mood and worship. Just respect them. Actually, once you respect a Vaishnava, even in his mind, if someone chants Hare Krishna even once, according to the Upadeshamrita, then we respect that person in our mind. And if someone is initiated and serving, in spite of whatever faults they may have, then we respect them by offering our obeisances and service to such a Vaishnava. Okay. So here's another question by Gopal Das. When Narottam Das Thakur says his claim to Lord Chaitanya's mercy is first, it is out of great humility and ostensible shame. Ostensible shame. Oops. I don't know if that's correct English, but anyway. But couldn't one also think that others would be better servants, so it's better for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give mercy to others first because they can do better service? Lord Chaitanya gives mercy to everybody, so one is thinking that if he gives mercy to me, he will give mercy to everybody. I'm first. And also, one is thinking that if Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives mercy to me, then that will glorify Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Just like we hear about Jagai and Madai, that whole story is a manifestation of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And it actually, Tarashakshai Jagai Madai, and it gives us enthusiasm to worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, if Lord Chaitanya saves the most fallen, then it gives other people enthusiasm to take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's not that you should say, I'm the most fallen, but they're more qualified devotees than me, so give them mercy. But Lord Chaitanya can give mercy to everybody simultaneously. It's not that, Lord Chaitanya gave mercy to me, and he just didn't have time to give mercy to more qualified people. Just like Lord Chaitanya is looking at his watch, and he thinks, oh, I only have 2 minutes to give mercy to Gopal. And after that, I'm going to have to take a vacation, a mercy vacation. There's too much mercy. So it's not selfish. It's not selfish. So anyway. So that's why Narottam Das Thakur says my claim is first. Okay, so any other questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments, problems, issues? No. Okay, so we want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. And tomorrow actually, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is actually the Sunday program here. So we may start class a half hour early. It depends on the weather, because we're supposed to have like a little Rath Yatra here tomorrow. And if the weather is not, it's not raining or something like that, or thunder and lightning and everything like that, then we'll have class half hour early just tomorrow. Or for those of you who are watching us in the morning, that means tonight. If it's morning for you now, it'll be nighttime when we do our next. Will it be nighttime? No, it'll be next morning. Sorry, I got it wrong. It'll be next morning. Next morning, but maybe a half hour earlier. Okay? Maybe a half an hour earlier. But anyway, I will send out a text on my WhatsApp group so you can all get informed about what we're going to do. It actually all depends on the weather. And tomorrow we're going to speak about Rath Yatra again. I may tell the story of King Indradunya again, because it's a Sunday feast. I think it's a good Rath Yatra story. But anyway, let's see what Krishna wants. Okay, thank you very much. All